back again with another episode of Topwater Podcast. I am Justin Ellis. I am the host, and, I got some more tackle in, so we're going to be talking a little bit more about tackle, a little bit more about the technique that I am going to be trying to implement out at Springfield Lake, and possibly here, probably, maybe next week. I mean, I might be going back out to Springfield Lake this next week, but I really want to try giving Fellows Lake a try, just kind of change it up and do something a little bit different, because it's good and all to be able to figure out a lake and start really building a pattern, especially through one season to the next, and then going full circle all the way back around to the beginning of the year, which that's one of the good things about being able to get out there on a very regular basis, is because I can start building these patterns and I can start building all these different things that I need to build and be able to bring that information to you guys. And so yeah, and it's right now I'm pretty confident that I got that place nailed down, at least for right now. Things might change if I don't go there for a while and then come back and, just kind of have to dust off the old tools and figure it out. But, at least for right now, it's pretty straightforward. I really don't have to worry about too much. But I did buy some stuff from Tackle Warehouse and also from Bass Pro. For one thing, I bought new jig skirts. That's great. I bought a couple different colors. Of course, I got black, blue, and green pumpkin, which, honestly, I really like the color because it has that bold profile, but it still has that sort of, natural look to it. So it's not completely like black and blue. There's something to break it up. I also got a panfish color or a bluegill color. Of course, the ever popular. This one is actually it says Marlin Blue, but that looks pretty white to me. I mean, it looks like a pearl white, which that's cool. But that'll go great with some of my shad sort of style baits, and of course the black and blue. That's the way to go. And I bought those with the intention of them actually being punch skirts, but after kind of playing around with them, I think they're probably just better off throwing them on a jig or onto some sort of like spinnerbait or something like that. But I did find that some of the chatterbaits, and especially some of the ones that I really didn't use, or and not even just the chatterbaits. Actually, I think some of them were actually swim jigs. Yeah, these ones were actual swim jigs. The ones I actually pulled off, this is what I was kind of looking for, something with that silicone center, so I can run a line through it. But oh well. But I just kind of feel like that would be nice, because I wouldn't mind having some sort of like almost a jig profile, but something that was weedless. Even though jigs are, they're technically weedless, but they're not as weedless as you would probably want them to be, especially when you're throwing it into like heavy cover, trying to punch through stuff. That hook is still pretty exposed, and it's gonna hang up into stuff. And it seems like every time I try to like mess around with lily pads and jigs and stuff, I ended up just hooking into the lily pad stems and just getting a whole bunch of grass and just spooking everything. So I just kind of decided to go with the punch skirt sort of option, just because I think it's a little bit more weedless. It's a little bit more customizable. I just think the profile is going to be a little bit better. So, those are pretty cool to have, though, because I exchanged them on my on some of my jigs. And I'm glad I did, because they actually really look nice. I actually really enjoy the look of them. Like I have this swim jig here that actually looks pretty good. It has that nice orange underbelly, real natural look to it. Just an all around, and it matches the swim bait head itself. So I think that was a pretty decent, trade-off, because I'd trade that dude off for because this was the original skirt that was on it, which is it's not bad. It's still pretty much the same as that. It's just this one has a little bit more orange, and I think it's a little bit more, it just looks better. I think this skirt looks better than the original one that came on. But now that means I have two separate punch skirts. One's a little bit more of a natural bluegill sort of color, and the other one's like black and blue. But I also switched out a couple of different trailers. Not that one. Like this guy here. Just this nice pitch and jig, black and blue. And it looks good. I like the profile on that. It's nice and puffed up. The skirt material does kind of get into the weed guard a little bit, but I can always just move that out. But I like the way that looks. I like it. It has a lot of flash to it, and I don't know. I'm ready to give it a try, but Springfield Lake's a little bit difficult because since it has this really soft mud bottom, it's hard to fish anything that's weighted because it just sinks straight into this mud bottom. And when I mean it's soft, it's soft. Like you'll stick your paddle into the mud, and what'll end up happening is you'll go to paddle and you think you're just pushing water, but if you look down, your paddle will be halfway into the mud, and you're not really realizing it because of how saturated the mud is with the water, and it's not real, and it's just settled. Like that's the way it is. It's just settled. It's not actually like a really hard mud. It's just nothing but silt and sediment, and just, good luck. I have had such hard luck fishing anything that's weighted into that place. So I usually try to go with either a weightless option or a very lightweight option, or some sort of like Mojo rig, or some people call it a finesse Carolina rig. But yeah, that's gonna be a game changer right here. I like that black and blue. I've been really digging black and blue here lately, but I've also been putting these skirts onto my spinnerbaits too. So now I have like an actual bluegill colored spinnerbait, which is nice. And I think that was it as far as the replacements. I know I'm pretty sure I did put one. Aha! This is what I did. Here it is. This is the one that I think I'm probably going to end up having the most luck on, is that guy right there. And he's paired up with one of those rage bugs. Not rage bugs, but one of the Guggen Bandito bugs. I just still had a pack, and I haven't gone through them yet. I don't fish these things that much, the Bandito bugs. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I like the rage bugs. But, they're pretty much the same thing. Literally, they're pretty much the same thing, except for the Guggen baits. The Bandito bug has a little bit thicker of a body, whereas the rage bug has that sort of like almost like pontoon sort of style body, to where it has like two thicker outsides, and the inside in the middle is actually a little bit thinner. I almost like the Guggen bait just a little bit better ish, just the body itself. But I mean, like I said, it's almost like you're splitting hairs at this point. It's really what do you want to spend your money on? I mean, which brand do you want to spend your money on? Do you want to spend your money on the Guggen brand, or do you want to spend your money on the Strike King brand? Because it's really, you're really just, I mean, you're paying about the same price, and they have about the same action, and they're just about the same soft plastic. I mean, damn near. I mean, I barely see any sort of different of an action between the two. I think they're pretty interchangeable, actually. So, and then there's that. So, those are the skirts that I bought, and like I said, I'm pretty pleased with them, and I'm ready to fish them. But kind of the next item up on the list is I bought an AFCO hoodie. It's actually a sun shirt, because the thing is I don't like wearing sunscreen while I'm out there, because I kind of feel like when I wear sunscreen, I have a tendency to not catch fish at all. So I think really what it is I get that chemical, because that chemical gets onto my hands, and like my arms will sweat, and because you're putting it on your arms, putting it on your legs, and you'll wash your hands off. But the thing is when you wash your hands off, that's just this part. I mean, it's still going to seep down, and it may even seep out of your hands while you're still doing stuff. So, I really don't know, like, if it actually, like, it seems to hurt my fishing more than it helps to protect. I mean, it protects me from the sun, but if I'm not catching fish, then why am I even out there? So my kind of solution to that is actually buying one of these shirts. So what I like about this is it actually has the gator built in to the shirt itself, because I have a tendency to lose mine. I have my gator, and I don't even know where it is right now. It could be in my car. It could be somewhere in my room, or I have no idea. But I keep losing it. But this, I'm not going to lose it. I'd have to lose the whole shirt, which would be terrible. I mean, if I'm out there losing shirts, I'm having a bad day, because I'm losing everything. I might as well be losing a kayak at the same time. It's probably going to be one of those days. But this right here is a good buy, and I can't wait to, like, I've already bought one, and the reason why I bought two was because I wanted to make sure that I had, like, a replacement, just in case one gets, I could have one day, go fishing, be able to come back, because those things are actually light enough to where you could actually wear them without any sort of undershirt or anything like that, or you could actually wear it as an undershirt if it's cold and you need a jacket. They're light enough to where they do kind of just, they're the same type of material as a any sort of like dry fit shirts and stuff like that, to where they have that wicked technology on to where it actually evaporates sweat and evaporates all the water off of you, and it breathes really nice, and it's a really nice thing. The only thing I don't like about the gators is I can't really wear it over my nose, because when I wear it over my nose, it fogs up my sunglasses, and so I have to wear it like outside, have my nose outside the gator, which is then it's not being protected by the sun. And if it's not being protected by the sun, then I kind of have to put on a little bit of sunscreen. But I think having a little bit of sunscreen on the nose is a much different thing than having sunscreen all over my body and I'm just seeping out sunscreen. So I think having a small amount on your hands is a lot easier to wash off than having a large amount. So that's what I really kind of think it comes down to. So I'm glad I picked a couple of those up, and especially since if I take like any sort of trips or anything like that, I'll have spare. I'll have a spare. And it's always nice to have spares. But the next thing, and I can't wait to try these out because I've seen a lot of videos and a lot of people catching fish off these. The jackhammer from Z-Man. The jackhammer chatterbait. I went ahead and got a black and blue, and I got a white. So there you go. I'm going to try those out and see if they're actually worth the money. I mean, as far as I could tell, they're worth the price. They're probably going to catch. They're probably going to catch you some bass. They're probably going to be, yeah. But I hear they're not really good to fish around cover, so I'll have to keep that in mind when it comes down to like wood cover, laydowns, anything that's like brush. But then again, also chatterbaits, they're just so difficult to fish through that stuff because the way it's designed, whenever it hits that blade, it's going to roll it over, and it's going to roll it over towards that hook. So you're pretty much going to catch a lot. And I think, from what I can tell, the Strike King chatterbait comes through cover a lot better, but I haven't tried it out. I've only watched videos on it, and everything that everybody says, they say that it does go through, wood a lot better than it does grass. So, I mean, that might be an option to think about there. But whenever it comes down to fishing laydowns, I mean, I usually end up fishing an underspin anyways because I can usually throw those like pretty much where I want because the underspins I usually use are weedless. I love those owner flashy swimmers. Those are by far, hands down, my favorite bait. I mean, favorite underspin in order to put onto that with I usually pair it up with a Strike King Rage Swimmer or maybe like a Kaitak Fatty Swimmer, one of those. But one of the things I am going to do is pair these jackhammers up, and I went ahead and bought the Gary Yamamoto Zenko little swim baits, of course, in black and blue and white in order to match. I just wanted to make sure that they do match. It's probably a pretty good idea to kind of, well, it could be, a good idea to match your colors, but when you have such a contrasting bait, I mean, I'm just going to pair it up. I mean, that's the way I think. I just like match shit. And also, I went ahead and bought some of these Savage Gear. They're the they're the dark gill. They're little bluegill swim baits. They have a paddle tail. They're not very big, which is good because typically bluegill profile baits are usually kind of big and bulky and hard for bass to eat, which these are much smaller. And since it matches the hatch, whenever I have clear water days and I'm wanting to fish something that's, of course, not on the bottom because, when you're fishing such a soft bottom, you don't want it to sink down through it. So something like this might actually come in handy if it's like a little bit clearer water, visibility is pretty decent, especially in the summer months. Because sometimes in the summer months, back in those like grassy areas, the water will get filtered out. All like the sediment and stuff will kind of get filtered out, and you'll actually get fairly decent water clarity. So that's something to actually kind of, I'm actually kind of, excited to try out some of this. I'm always excited to try out new stuff, especially new gear that I'm not really familiar with. Like swim baits are a big one. I haven't really messed around with too many like swim baits, and especially the larger swim baits. I was actually thinking these, for some reason I was thinking these were bigger, but 3-inch, actually with them being the 3-inch swim baits, I think I'm actually going to end up catching more bass with these than if they were bigger, like profiled baits, because I was expecting it to be like a bigger profile, like almost the size of an actual bluegill, like a full-grown bluegill. This is more sized of like one of the smaller, younger ones. But I don't know. We'll see. I might actually catch a couple catfish off of these. That's also a possibility. But we're gonna keep dipping into the goodie bag. And I also, one of the things I want to do is I want to start trying to fish slower fishing techniques. So I decided to go with the ribbon-tailed worm, and my plan is to actually rig these up with the Mojo rig and fish these pretty much how, just hopping it along. But I think that will work a lot because the Mojo rig, it has a light weight, so it's not going to sink very far down into the mud. But since the weight is actually off the hook, then it would actually, make it to where whenever the weight sinks down, the worm doesn't sink down. The worm actually just kind of flutters down, especially with that long tail. And the Mojo rig is actually really kind of simple to rig up. And right here, I got some braid, because this is really the only line that I have that's like kind of visible. I have some yellow lines somewhere, but I think it's buried in my car. I tried finding it. Apparently, I lose things. So the thing is there's two different ways you can. Well, there's multiple ways you can actually tie line onto a hook. Now, if I'm using something like monofilament or fluorocarbon, I'll actually do what's called an improved clinch knot, or a fisherman's knot. I think it's just called a fisherman's knot. I think I've heard it called the improved clinch knot, but I don't know if that's true. I think that was just something that somebody told me once, and I just went with it. But what I do is I start out by putting it through the line, like through the hook. And when I put it through the hook, the way I like to do it, and I think with the when you're not running a leader below it, like for a drop shot, it really kind of doesn't matter, but I always do it this way. I always put the line in where, if your hook was facing up, I always put the line going through this way. So if that's your hook, I would put the line actually down through it like that. So I go through it like that, I just make my little loop, figure out how long I want my tag end to be. And generally you'll want it to be somewhere around, I would almost say like 4 inches on the other side. So you'll come through the hook about 4 inches, and you'll rotate it. I do it anywhere from 5 to 7 times. Some people are religious about it and only do 7. I just kind of eyeball it and go, yeah, that's good. And I generally don't have too many problems with it. Then you stick it. Then what that does is it creates a little bit of a loop down here at the bottom next to the eye. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the tag end and you're going to stick it through that loop. And then after that, you're going to take that tag end again and you're going to stick it back through the loop that you made. Because when you put it through the loop, what it did is it created a loop going to the, going all around it. So you're going to, feed it back through that loop. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to, I always just grab it with my teeth, because this is, you end up using your mouth a lot, which is kind of, if you think about it, it's kind of disgusting because your water's in pretty nasty water sometimes. And you make sure you wet your line. You always want to wet the line because you don't want the knot to burn whenever you tighten it down. So what ends up happening is when you tighten it down, there's friction that's created onto the line. And that friction that's created onto the line could actually weaken the line or actually break the line too. Now, with this being braid, I would not tie the knot this way. If it was braid, I would actually do a Palomar knot. But I'm just doing this for all intents and purposes because this is the only line that I have that you might be able to see. So you take that, and after you wet it, you want to tighten it down. And the reason why I use my teeth is because you want to keep pressure on the tag end. You want to hold the hook, and you want to pull at the same time. And you should see that your knot is uniform. And if you can look at your knot and it doesn't look uniform, it looks like there's little bunches, like little wraps that are going over each other, go ahead and just cut the knot and retie. Don't even mess around with it, because the last thing you want to do is hook into a big bass and then just pop that dude right off. It's one of the worst feelings in the world. Because the thing is like there's nothing. Because the only thing that went wrong was your decision to fish with a bad knot. And so since you weren't meticulous with a bad knot, of course you're going to break off. And so the last thing you're going to do is you're going to cut off the tag end. I usually leave just a little bit of the tag end on there, just so that ways, if for some reason that knot were to slip, it kind of gives it a little bit of a buffer. You don't want to cut it all the way down, because if you cut it all the way down, sometimes that knot will slip a little bit because whenever there's pressure being put against it, it'll tighten the knot even further, but it'll also pull the tag end in. So it's trying to pull the tag in through everything else and pull it apart. And if it's too close, it's not going to grip down on itself. It's going to pull it through, and once it pulls through, the knot's going to fail. But so you got that going on right there. And what the Mojo rig is you're going to go up the line. So you're going to go up to probably right about, we're going to say, I usually like to do anywhere from like a foot to 2 foot. 1.5 feet, that's usually pretty, the sweet zone. But what you're going to do is you're going to take a split shot. And these are usually little lead, basically BB-sized weights that you can actually clamp on. And I like to get the split shots that have the little that have this little backside. If you see it, it's kind of like a little V. And what that's used for, it's actually used to open and close the split shot. So what you're going to do is you're going to take that split shot, you're going to go up the line. Okay, so we're going to go right there, and we're going to stick that bad boy on there. All right, there we go. Normally, I usually don't use my teeth, just because since this is lead, I don't like putting lead in my mouth, but, one more is not going to kill me. I've done enough so far. I've probably got some lead poisoning, a little bit of brain trauma, So what that does is now you have this weight. And what that's going to do is the weight's going to move like that, and it's just going to pull that along. So you're going to boop, and it's going to pop it up. And this is just going to go bloop, 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 up this way, and this weight's going to drop. And what I do is I Texas rig the baits. So the way I do it, you grab out one of these guys, and the flat side, the side that's smooth, that's going to be the bottom. The rib side, that's going to be the side that faces up. And what you do is you take your hook, and I normally like to use either a 4/0 or a 5/0 hook, one of those two. But I take it, and I go in probably about, just right about past the barb. And once I get past that barb, you pull it straight out underneath the bait. So right now, you have it nose hook. You start sliding up the hook, and then before you get to the little keeper that's on this side of the hook, you'll want to rotate it. You don't want to rotate it onto the spot. It's a little bit more difficult to do it like that. But then you push it up onto the keeper. See how we have the flat side down? What I like to do is I like to texpose. So what texposing means is you actually push the hook all the way through the bait, and then you skin hook on the opposite side. So instead, there's two ways to do it. There's texposing, and then there's just the regular rig, which the regular rigging, you just find where it's supposed to go in, and you just stick it in there and you just push it in. So then it'll sit like this, but the hook is completely buried in there. So you're less likely to hang up, but it takes more for the hook to actually penetrate through the plastic. So your hook sets have to be a little bit harder. And if you're in a kayak or something like that, to where when you set the hook, the kayak will actually move with you, then sometimes it's harder to drive that plastic through. So what I like to do is I find where it needs to go through. So I'm like, okay, that's where the hook's going to be setting, and that's where it's going to be, and keep it flat. Because this is the whole idea whenever you rig these baits, is you want to keep it looking like, if you were to hold it straight up and down, you would want it to look the same way with the hook inside of it. So that way the action stays the same. So you take that bait and you put it through, you push it all the way through. So boom. So now I have it pushed all the way through. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that, I'm going to pinch it up, and I'm going to put it right over that. So now it's tech exposed. So there's no hook exposed right now. But as soon as something grips down on it, it will pop that right out. Just boop, pop it right out. So it doesn't take much. And that's probably, this is one of the techniques that I want to get better at using. I've used it a couple times and I've caught fish with it, but I think that it's a little bit slow of a technique. And since it's a little bit slow of a technique, I can be a little impatient and not slow down and fish it well. So that's what I should do. But that's kind of explaining that rig right there. Which, like I said, I can't wait to actually fish this rig, because I think, especially with fishing in a place like Springfield Lake, it's a lake that has a lot of pressure. And since it has a lot of pressure, the fish see a lot of lures and a lot of baits. And, you know, that's good and bad. It's good because that means that it makes it more difficult to catch fish. So when you do catch fish, it's actually a little bit more rewarding. But it's bad because it's makes it more difficult to catch fish. You know, sometimes you want to just go out there and have fun. You don't want to have to struggle in order to catch a bass. You know, and that's another thing. Going out to Springfield Lake, you're not going to catch, 20, 30 bass in a day. That's just not happening. I mean, if you do, that's cool. And there's probably people out there that do go out there and, catch, 20, 30 fish in a day. They're probably not all giants, but I don't seem to have that sort of luck when I'm there. So that's cool. And the colors that I got in these worms is, of course, black with the blue tail. I got black and purple. It's called grape shad. It's kind of a crazy looking little color. And of course, the ever favorite, black and blue flake. That's going to be my 3 different colors that I'm going to go with. And hopefully one of the 3 is actually going to produce some fish. All right. Next up, I bought some Space Monkeys. Space Monkeys. These are made by Strike King. They have the little rage swimming, claws on them, which I'm actually really happy to get, and I'm happy to have. And these are pretty much same rig. Either it's going to be a Weightless Texas, a Mojo rig, or I might just do like some sort of punch rig with it. But I really doubt that I'll go with the punch rig setup. I think I would rather have some sort of crawl bait, or some sort of either put one of the, I got some rage crawls that I could possibly put on there, or maybe some of the, I think Net Baits has has some. I mean, their stuff isn't too bad. They have a lot of action though. Those crawfish patterns that they have in the net baits, those actually, I don't know. I've gotten bit off of them, but I tend to not end up hooking into them very well. I don't know. That was also when I was trying to flip stuff, and that's like punch through actual like vegetation, but I think I was punching through too far to where I was actually going down into the mud. So that's another thing. I got to figure that out. I got to figure out how to punch through that stuff without going all the way through the mud. So you're basically trying to like wiggle your bait through the grass in order to like get down into it to possibly, drop something on a bass's head or something and, get him to bite. That'd be pretty cool, But I got these space monkeys in two separate colors. I got one in the Bama Bug color. And I also got it in the black and blue flake. So one's more of a natural color, and the other one is, of course, bold and black. That's the way to go. And, of course, I got some ochos doing some stick bait fishing, which stick bait fishing is along the same lines as what you would think. More slow, methodical fishing, which, I mean, they catch fish. They really do catch fish. It's just slow and methodical. It's sometimes it can be difficult just to take your time with something like that. It can be real hard. It can be difficult. So that's, it's about trying new baits. It's about trying new baits. It's about trying new tactics, and it's about figuring new ways to catch out fish because I don't want to just do the same thing over again. Over and over and over and over again. But when it works, it works. If you're just looking to post pictures on Instagram of you holding up bass, we'll do the same thing over and over again. And you're going to have pictures all day long to put on Instagram, But I wanted to try to innovate and try to expand my knowledge and not just do the same old, but the same old works. At least in Springfield Lake. Which, the same old is these right here. The Owner Flashy Swimmers. I went ahead and, of course, bought 2 packs of the 3/0s, which 3/0s actually go with the 3.75 inch baits. And I also bought the 5/0, and the 5/0's actually going to go with the 4. So these ones are hands down my favorite bait. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've gone out there and thrown something other than these and just had such a hard time, and then turned around and started fishing these and started catching bass. So, these so far are my number one. And matter of fact, I was out there with the Strike King, their underspin, and I was getting bit, but man, I was not connecting. But I wonder if it was the size of the bait. I wonder if that bigger bait is just a little bit too big. Well, and it might, I don't know. It seemed like they were grabbing it, but I wasn't able to stick them. Like the hook just for some reason wasn't penetrating through. And I don't know, maybe it could have been me, but I was setting the hook pretty hard. And it just wasn't happening for me. I just could not connect. I just couldn't, I don't know. Maybe the bass were cheating. Maybe that's what it was. Bass were cheating. They were taking, they're oiling up. They're greased up. Those are greased up bass. Someone called the commission. Those bass were greasing. But I also, for the punch rig, bought some Bad Mamas. I actually like these ones too because they have that fat body. And I like that fat body. But these guys right here are for sure something that I definitely have. I definitely think that I'm going to catch some bass off of these. Like I really doubt that. I really doubt that I won't at least hook into something on these, especially once the lily pads start growing up and we start doing some topwater fishing and we start getting blow-ups. Because what will happen is bass will blow up on something and they'll miss it because they won't necessarily go through the lily pad. They're just coming up and trying to suck it down without just like completely exploding outside, the lily pads. Because, they don't want to get stuck on top. They're just trying to come up and eat whatever's on the top. And sometimes that causes them to show themselves, but not be able to eat the bait and get hooked up. So then you have to follow it up with something. Either follow it up with the Senko, which isn't a bad way to go, but if it's hooked up on my spinning setup, I'm not necessarily going to toss that dude in there. Now, if I have him rigged up onto my bait casting setup, then yeah, I'll throw one of those in there. But if not, I'm gonna throw one of these guys, one of those dudes. And how I'm gonna rig it up, and I'll show you right now, is we're gonna do it like this. So first things first, what you'll need: bobber stops, your weight of choice, and I'm just using lead weights right now because my other weights are in my tackle box, and I forgot to grab them out. Of course, forget, I guess that's the name of the game today, other than the whiff and the whiff and the whiff and the whiff, which I'll be I'll be putting out a video. It'll probably already be out by the time this one comes out. Yeah, I'm probably going to post that one before I actually post this one, but it's just going to be the fishing day that I had last weekend, and basically talking about some of the stuff that, well, not really talking about, but basically showing you the stuff that I talk about and showing you what I'm doing and maybe what I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing right. And that day, I felt like that day I did a lot of things wrong, but I think that I think a lot of that had to do with the gear I was using. So always take that into account. Sometimes yeah, it is you doing the wrong thing, but sometimes it was the decision to use the wrong gear. And if you're using the wrong gear, then of course you're not gonna have a good day. So what you're gonna want, like I said, bobber stop. Weight your punch rig or punch skirt, and then you're going to want your hook. And of course, bait of choice. So first things first, this is how you rig it up. First, you got to have your bobber stops. And these are actually relatively cheap. I bought a ton of them off of eBay, and I think that's not a bad way to go, is just go on eBay, find a whole bunch of them. And I would honestly get the large bobber stops, just because I think they hold the weight a little bit better. Instead of the mediums, I find when I go over a quarter ounce, when I start hitting like half ounce, you have to use two, and I'm not a big fan of that. So first things first is you put your bobber stop. You're going to stick your line through the loop. You're going to grab your bobber stop. You're going to push it up onto the line. Once you push it up onto the line, you're going to just pull it until the tag end comes through. And then you just feed that up your line. Now, of course, bobber stop's not reusable, of course, because it's a little rubber piece and it just kind of nice and neatly hangs onto your line. So, boom. You got your bobber stop on there. That's key number one. And if you need to use two because you don't want your weight to be running up your line all the time. Next thing is you want to put your weight on there. Now, generally you're going to use a bullet weight. The bullet weight, when you put it on there, make sure the pointy end, you put the line in the pointy end first, and it goes out the round end. Because the round end, the fatter end, that's going to sit up against your bait. So that goes on next. Then you want to put your punch skirt on, which in this case is just a silicone skirt that I pulled off of a different bait, which, hey, it's okay. It's good to recycle. Recycling's a good thing. You're going to take that and you're going to feed that through. Now I'm dropping stuff. Let's see if I can do it without dropping. Now when it comes down to rigging this stuff up, it does take some time, a little bit of time. I used to snell knot. I used to throw snell knots onto my hooks, but I don't know. I seem to have a bad hookup ratio. Or I don't know. It just doesn't seem to work out for me as well. So there you go. So now you have your silicone skirt on there. Next thing that you want to put on there is now your hook. Now when it comes down to the hook, usually when I'm using a punch rig, I am using braid because it's usually into heavy cover. And now when you're using braid, you'll want to go at you want to go 60. You want to go over 55. I like 65. 65-pound braid seems to be the magic number for me, and it seems to be a magic number for a lot of people. You really don't need to go too much heavier than that because, there's really no point. But you really don't necessarily want to go too light either because you still have the possibility of just setting the hook hard and snap your line off because you're wrapped up in a whole bunch of stuff and it just can't handle it. So what you do with what I do is, of course, you start the same way. You put the hook, you take the hook facing up, you take the line, you put it running through the eyelid running down. So, boom. And the way you rig up a Palomar knot is, and it's almost a little bit simpler of a knot. There's less steps to it. There's not a whole bunch of twisting. There's not a whole bunch of, going through this loop and holding it with your teeth here and all that sort of stuff. Some people like to just pinch the line in half and then feed it through the eyelid, but I sometimes notice that it doesn't work out for me like that. But you will have a fairly decent size tag in when you do this, because the next step after you do that, so you're going to want to make sure you grab it by the both ends, and you just go around like you do like that. So you're going to come around, you're going to make that loop, and you're going to feed the loop end, not the tag end. You're going to feed the loop end through the hole that you just created. If I can, hands are all oiled up from touching baits. And you're going to take that, and you're going to kind of tighten it down like that. And I usually like to wet the knot at this point. Now you don't have to tighten it down snug. You just tighten it down a little bit. It's not that big of a deal, And you're going to take it, and you're going to take that loop, and you're going to run the hook through the loop like that. So when you pull it on the other side, everything's on the top. And what I like to do is I like to put my finger at the bottom of the loop. So, and then once you get it tight, you pull it down until that knot's tight, and then you can let go of the tag in, and then just pull it through until that loop tightens right back up. And boom, you got a Palomar. That knot is a pretty strong knot. It's a very simple knot, and it's probably the best knot to tie to a hook when you're using braid. I've tried using the fisherman's knot, and I have snapped off 65-pound braid at the knot because the braid will actually cut itself. If there's too much material, it'll actually cut itself. So, boom. trim up your tag end. Of course, I always like to leave a little bit because I'm just one of those guys. So now, if you take that bobber stop, pull it all the way down, now, see, you have a little bit of a jig going on. And then now it's a weedless jig. Like a Texposed weedless jig. And you take one of your little baits that you choose, little creature baits or little beavers. Usually people use beavers. And you're going to figure out which side's the top. Usually the top end is some baits, they're designed to where they have a top and a bottom. And usually the top end is the one that has the appendages to where they flare out. So if you notice everything kind of bunching in on itself when you kind of put your finger on it, like if it was coming over a log, you can see how the appendages flare out. So see how they just kind of fold together? Well, this would be the bottom then, because you want them to flare out. And when you rig it up, it's the same way we rigged up the worm. You're going to take that and you're going to push it in until it gets usually just right past the barb. Pull it out the bottom. Flip that dude around. Push him up onto the keeper. Figure out where the Texpose is. And the Texpose down there. So you're going to take that dude. You're going to push it through the... Didn't do the greatest job Texposing it. Boom. Now you have... It's a little bit... I didn't do that one that great. It's pretty much all the way down at the end of the hook. Probably should use a little bit smaller hook on this. I just kind of went with the hook that I had. All right, there we go. That's a lot better. Well, not really. Not really a lot better. Because I think you have... Yeah. I think this hook's just too big. This one would actually need like a 4/0 hook. This is a 5/0 hook. So it's a little bit too big for it, but you kind of get... I mean, I'm just going to just do one of these then. Just kind of do the regular Texas rig. Oh, it doesn't want to stay in there. Huh. All right. Well, gotta love having problems. Logisticals. But yeah, you get the idea. But that's pretty much it. So whenever this thing comes shooting through the pad, it's all one thing. Bloop. That skirt's just undulating through it. And also, you have a little bit extra action. You have that secondary action into the bait. So that's the punch rig. And I can't wait to go out there and utilize it in some lily pads. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. But that is going to do it for today. You know, this has been pretty fun sitting down and going through some more baits and actually sitting in, rigging up some stuff, even though not exactly using the right, terminal tackle, but oh well. Like I said, that was just kind of the only hook I had, right now without just having to run out and grab my tackle box. But yeah, so that's going to be it. So I had fun. I hope you guys had fun. And if you like this, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and share this with your friends, your family, tell them about it. Grow the TWP Fishing Nation. You can follow me at Justin_TWP Fishing dot. I always want to say .com after it. It just seems like .com would be the great way to go. But yeah, you can follow me at Justin_TWP Fishing at Instagram. You can follow me on Facebook at Justin Ellis. And I hope you guys are having a great day. I'm having a great day. You guys, hopefully you're going to get out there and you're going to enjoy some summertime fishing, some summertime bass fishing with some heavy cover, dirty water, hardcore hook sets, and, just make a couple memories, have some fun, So you guys be safe out there, be patient, just keep trying, keep grinding. And, when the fishing's good, enjoy yourself. And when the fishing's lousy, just take it as a challenge. Take it as the time in order to, really just sharpen those tools and be able to catch that one bass when everybody says that you can't. So, you guys have a great night. I'm going to have a great night. And I'll see you guys out on the water. Peace.
There we go. Oh. There we go.